Hello and welcome to the first ever Dad Strength podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahey. I am a first-time parent. I have a daughter. She was born September 19th, 2015, 1 year ago today. Today is her first birthday. So over the past year, I had a lot of ups and downs. Being a first-time parent is never easy. You're going to have a lot of questions, go through a lot of tough times. So I started this podcast to kind of give insight into parenting. It's very hard to learn everything that you can, especially for first-time parents. You don't know what to expect. Every child is different. Most of the materials for parenting are done through books, which unfortunately, if you're a working parent like I am, you don't have a lot of time to sit down and read. Once the child is born, you have even less time. You don't have time to sit around and read. Maybe during their nap times, I can read a few chapters here or there, but you never have a normal schedule where you can read about parenting, try to find answers, and things like that. So I couldn't find a lot of good resources audio-wise. I have a decent commute to work. I live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, so one of the easiest ways for me to learn was to listen to podcasts, different interviews, and things like that. So I decided to start my own, kind of talk about my experiences as a parent, a first-time parent, some of the things that came up for me, some questions I've had, other questions that other parents have asked me as they come up. There are a lot of things that I'm not going to be able to cover. Each situation is so unique, it's hard to cover everything. But I'm going to be talking about my experience as a father, things that I learned, things I wish I had known going in, and things like that. Going forward, I'm going to be experimenting with the format of the podcast. If you have any suggestions, feedbacks, or even questions you would like me to discuss on the air, please let me know. You can send an email to me. My email is Richie, Richie, @sociallynumb.com. This podcast is hosted by sociallynumb.com, which is a website I run, basically talking about current trends and things. I wanted to start a parenting podcast because, like I said, there aren't a lot of audio resources for parenting. So my idea behind the podcast and how it is going to be set up, each podcast is going to have a different topic. I'm going to base the whole podcast around that. They're going to be shorter format compared to other podcasts. Some podcasts run about an hour long or so. I'm going to try to keep this one around 20 minutes, focused on one or two topics. Depending on how the first couple episodes go, I'm going to try to bring in some guests, get a different opinion on the podcast, especially whenever you get to some different like gender gaps. I only have a daughter, so some things that I might face, you might not face if you have a boy, different temperaments, potty training, things like that. As my daughter grows up, the podcast is going to evolve with her, and I can kind of see and get a feel for things that I've seen, and hopefully get some feedback from other parents on what they see going forward. So, beginning with the second episode, which will launch next week, we're going to start with the actual birth of your child and work your way up. As my daughter grows, I'm going to evolve some of the topics. I might go back and hit older topics, go in more depth with certain things, depending on how many questions I get in a certain area. Some of the other ones I know, starting off the bat, one of the big ones is breastfeeding versus formula, different styles of breastfeeding. So that's going to come up in a future episode, and just different things, especially from like a dad perspective. What am I looking at? Trying to help any way that I can, and just hope that my child grows up in a safe, healthy environment, one that they can learn in and grow and develop as a person. So catch us next week as we'll go into our first topic, which will be preparing for the hospital visit and the birth of your first child. Thank you, and have a good week.